There is no doubt that Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey draws from Friedrich Nietzsche's philosophy. This becomes evident from the first frames of the film, as the opening title card is set to the Sunrise fanfare from Richard Strauss's Also sprach Zarathustra, a musical composition inspired by Nietzsche's philosophical novel, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, a book for all and none. Just as Strauss did, Kubrick sought to create a work of art that comprised the evolution of man as depicted in Nietzsche's epic. As Jerold J. Abrams argues in his essay, Nietzsche's Overman as Posthuman Star Child in 2001 A Space Odyssey, Zarathustra provides, perhaps, the most plausible interpretation of the ambiguous final image of the film. The Star Child, as it's come to be called, is a representation of Nietzsche's Übermensch. Abrams argues that the monolith transforms Bowman into the Star Child, just as Zarathustra prepares humanity to go forward into the next stage of the Overman. If it is to be concluded, however, that the culmination of man's evolution in 2001 is in accordance with Nietzschean philosophy, then the evolutionary process that Kubrick maps over the course of the film must also follow a Nietzschean order. In 2001, Kubrick provides such an order, as he equates scientific advancement with the Nietzschean Death of God, an essential stage in man's evolution toward the Overman. Later on, I will discuss how Kubrick dissents from Nietzschean philosophy as he replaces the role of God with extraterrestrial intelligence, suggesting that a greater designer or creator is necessary for man's evolution, but we'll get to that later. Nietzsche provides the framework for the death of God in his Parable of the Madman, in which the madman, a precursor to the character of Zarathustra, cries to the people in a public market, quote, "Whither is God? I will tell you. We have killed him, you and I." Nietzsche establishes that the death of God will occur indirectly by man's actions. That is, scientific advancements will promote a secular world in which God plays no role. It could be argued that 2001, with its depictions of futuristic technology, presents a future where God has already died. It is difficult to determine God's status in the film, as no mention of God or religion is made, except for the automated attendant that asks Dr. Haywood Floyd for his Christian name as a form of identification.
Welcome to voice print identification. When you see the red light go on, would you please state in the following order: your destination, your nationality, and your full name. Surname first, Christian name, and initial.
This indicates, perhaps insignificantly, that religion, specifically Christianity, at least existed at some point in the film's universe. Of course, the absence of any mention of God does not indicate that God is dead. Rather, the event of God's death can be singularly traced to the discovery of the monolith on the lunar surface. In his speech before the council regarding the cover story, Floyd says,
I'm sure you're all aware of the extremely grave potential for cultural shock and social disorientation contained in this present situation, if the facts were prematurely and suddenly made public without adequate preparation and conditioning.
As the concept of God is both culturally and socially ingrained, largely throughout humanity, Floyd is aware of the potential catastrophe that could result from the announcement of this discovery. The monolith is, after all, as Dr. Halverson explains, deliberately buried.
It hasn't been covered up by natural erosion or other forces. It seems to have been deliberately buried.
Deliberately buried.
Deliberately buried.
Indicating that God, as man has come to understand him, is not the ultimate creator or designer. Yet, it is here that 2001 strays from Nietzschean philosophy, as there still must be a non-human overseer that deliberately buried the monolith, even if that overseer does not align with man's preconceived anthropomorphic version of one. The death of God marks the beginning of Nietzsche's Age of Nihilism. In The Will to Power, Nietzsche explains that nihilism, as a psychological state, begins when we have sought a meaning in all events that is not there. The discovery of the lunar monolith as evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence suggests that the meaning man has ascribed to life in the form of an anthropomorphic god is non-existent. This is discouraging, as it warrants that man's previous efforts to find meaning have been futile. Thus, man's efforts preceding the discovery of the lunar monolith are altogether insignificant. Kubrick visually implies this insignificance through his iconic match cut between a primitive bone weapon and a satellite orbiting the Earth. In a single cut, the film's narrative jumps ahead millions of years. Kubrick deems everything between these 2 points in the evolution of man as unworthy of viewing or including in this movie. Additionally, the visual congruence between bone and satellite symbolizes the relative similarity between the evolved man and the apes shown earlier in the Dawn of Man sequence. This pronounced similarity parallels Zarathustra's teaching: "You have made your way from worm to man, and much in you is still worm." Despite all his scientific and technological advancements, man has not advanced far beyond ape. The structure of 2001 further elucidates the evolved man's closeness to the earlier ape. Kubrick divides the film into 3 distinctly titled sections: The Dawn of Man, Jupiter Mission, and Jupiter and Beyond the Infinite. The aforementioned jump ahead to man's space exploration and Floyd's entire narrative are contained within the Dawn of Man section, implying that even the scientifically advanced man is a relatively early incarnation within mankind's greater evolution. After all, Floyd and the other scientists are just as confused by the presence and function of the monolith as the earlier apes are. It is not until Kubrick shows the lunar monolith, his visual symbol of the death of God, that the film advances to the next stage, the Jupiter mission. Paralleling Nietzsche's Age of Nihilism, the characters in this section of the film manifest a loss of purpose. David Bowman, Frank Poole, and the other astronauts are not aware of the purpose of the mission. Only the HAL 9000 computer is aware, quote-unquote, of the mission's true purpose of finding intelligent life in Jupiter space. Kubrick shows the mundanity of the astronauts' existence. Poole passes the time playing chess and begins to nap as he listens to a video message from his parents. The outer space setting serves as a perfect visual metaphor for the Age of Nihilism, as it embodies the Madman's description of a post-death of God existence as one in which we stray as through an infinite nothing. The vast infiniteness of space contributes to man's nihilistic feelings of insignificance. It is therefore only fitting that, after Floyd reveals, via a pre-recorded video message, to Bowman the purpose of the mission, the film advances to the next stage, Jupiter and Beyond the Infinite. Once Floyd tells him his purpose, Bowman overcomes the nihilistic infiniteness and enters an unknown realm, which Kubrick depicts with imagery that can only be described as otherworldly. Even though Kubrick provides a Nietzschean Death of God as an evolutionary turning point in 2001, he functionally replaces God with extraterrestrial intelligence. As Abrams argues in his aforementioned essay, the existence of aliens in 2001 obscures what is perhaps the most fundamental insight in Zarathustra, that is, the absence of a greater designer or creator. Yet, the aliens that Abrams refers to are not present or shown in the film, no more than God is. Even if the extraterrestrial intelligence that creates and places the monoliths is godlike, it is certainly not godlike in any traditional sense of the term. 2001's godlike designer is not anthropomorphic, nor is it omniscient or omnipotent. After all, even if it is the monoliths that dictate man's evolution, it is ultimately man's actions that spark evolutionary transition. Technological advancements in space exploration allowed man to discover the lunar monolith, just as Bowman's ability to overcome technology allowed him to discover the Jupiter monolith and travel beyond the infinite. By emphasizing man's influence over his own evolution, 2001 illustrates Nietzsche's active nihilism. Zarathustra instructs that man must set himself a goal. This goal is found in the Overman that man must actively strive to evolve toward. Zarathustra also refers to man's ability to create the Overman. Likewise, 2001 is a celebration of man's ability to create. The development of the HAL 9000 computer, for example, demonstrates man's desire to create a superior intelligence. This reflects Kubrick's own optimistic belief in the existence of a non-human intelligence. In a 1968 interview with Playboy, Kubrick displays this optimism, saying, "I will say that the God concept is at the heart of 2001, but not any traditional anthropomorphic image of God. I don't believe in any of Earth's monotheistic religions, but I do believe that one can construct an intriguing scientific definition of God once you accept the fact that there are approximately 100 billion stars in our galaxy alone, that its star is a life-giving sun, and that there are approximately 100 billion galaxies in just the visible universe." In this rare interview, Kubrick confirms the presence of an extraterrestrial replacement God at the heart of 2001. While science inevitably leads to the death of God, Kubrick proposes that science can create a new conception of God, or a, quote, scientific definition of God. As active nihilism requires man to seek meaning in the face of the death of God, Kubrick's understanding of an extraterrestrial intelligence as an alternative to God provides the active nihilist with a scientific solution.